is a good practice in that industry.
Thank you. Respected Srinivas Reddy garu. మీరు దిగిపోయారు. యా ఓకే. ఆలపాటి సురేష్ గారు, బల్విందర్ సింగ్ గారు, సోమ్ సుందర్ గారు, సుబ్బారావు గారు, దేవులపల్లి అమర్ గారు, సిన్హా గారు, and all the respected journalists, editors, photographers who have traveled from across the country. Welcome to Andhra Pradesh. This is a place where history is being rewritten in the form of new Amaravati capital. I'm pretty sure yesterday you heard the inspirational story from our Honorable Chief Minister, Sri Nara Chandrababu Naidu garu, and also all the other our government party officials as well. So, and I feel honored and proud to participate in this important 11th Plenary on Indian Journalist Union Association. I hope you are all having good time here in Vijayawada, though it is a little bit hot outside. But when we talk about, many of you are quite experienced here, what I see. You probably know about journalism more than me, because especially I stayed in America for 25 years. Yes, I was a doctor, I was an entrepreneur, but I also happened to run a edtech company where we do a lot of social media advertising and all that stuff. So I have seen quite a bit of transformation in media and how things are going. Now, for the last 2 years, I've been in politics. That part also I have seen how the entire social media works these days, as well as press. So having said that, journalism is often called the fourth pillar of democracy. But how did it truly get that name, get that title? I want to go back to a little bit of the history to understand that we must look back. We must begin with what we must never forget, our glory, our legacy. Because if you look at it, India did not achieve independence just with agitations or armies alone, right? It achieved its independence mainly through voices. Because the ideas and voices traveled across villages, across rivers, and across multiple languages, and reached the hearts of millions of people and told them, you deserve to be free. That was the story of independence. Who carried these words? It was you, the journalists are the ones who carried those words. Whether it's Gandhiji, Tilak, Netaji, Raja Ram Mohan Roy, or Annie Besant, before they become freedom fighters, they were journalists. That's how they used the press to unite a divided nation and created mass mobilization to achieve Swaraj. And Gandhiji, he used Swaraj and he told, Swaraj is my birthright. Tilak said, Swaraj is my birthright and I shall have it. These kind of words are what created revolutionary movements at that time. And Gandhiji used journalism as satyagraha. That means truth force movement, truth force in action. And subsequently, when British enacted Vernacular Press Act to silence us, we changed languages overnight, we published in secret, and we choose prison over silence at that time. At that time, they could cage the journalist, but they could not cage the truth. That's the history of independence, and obviously in 1947, we got independence, a new nation, a blank page. And after the independence, the press evolved from agitation to education. It is about moral, intellectual, and economic destiny of a new republic. Vernacular newspapers, particularly like Andhra Pradesh, Eenadu, they extended the developmental agenda to local languages. They explained the constitution to farmers. They explained 5-year finance commission plans to villagers. This is how the press carried the whole history after independence. Then we got emergency, right, in 1975, the darkest chapter in Indian democracy. At that time, editorials were edited, dissenting journalists were imprisoned, and at that time, people like Indian Express publish a blank edited, as you know, blank editorial, completely blank page, and press in its silence could find a voice. I mean, that blank page said more than 1,000 words than anyone ever could say. So silence itself became an act of journalism. That is the power of this profession. So after the emergency, the press emerged with renewed vigor, stronger, more committed, and more fearless than ever before. I mean, this is the glory and the story of the Indian journalism. And now the internet revolution has come. Mobile, WhatsApp, YouTube, things have changed. And now if I look at it, obviously not only in India, across the world, media is facing unprecedented challenges. Whether it is extreme polarization, perception of alignment with different political parties, the race of speed of misinformation, overtaking the need of accuracy. But however, some nations continue to preserve their strong independent journalism. But I feel there is an economic and overall uncertainty for journalists. I mean, obviously, you look at it, economic uncertainty, why that is happening. There is so much expansion of journalism, right, in media. Everybody today, whoever has a smartphone, became a reporter, editor, and a voice. And you're also facing a lot of challenges, whether it is physical attacks, legal intimidation, as I said, technological disruption, and even psychological fatigue. So today, journalist is expected to be a reporter, videographer, editor, fact checker, and a social media strategist. I mean, these are not some of these problems you could say for journalists, but I think these are the problems of a common man as well. Like, for example, financial insecurity. Why journalists, not everybody is able to get the right compensation? Even with the compensation that you get, why we are not able to afford? It is because school education has become expensive. Though government is spending per student several thousand rupees, still school education has become a problem for a lot of people, common man, not just for journalists. Healthcare, though we have insurance and the systems are evolving, still there is a huge problem. We don't get the quality healthcare at an affordable rate. And third, both law enforcement and enactment. Though we have laws for everything, unfortunately, that's why if the law is enforced, like, when I was in America, anybody to do any mischief, they think 100 times. Because people are not different there either. You have all kinds of people where there are exceptional good people that they don't need any systems, and you have people, regardless of what systems you have, they will continue to do bad things. But the system takes care of it. But here, as you know, the law enforcement has been a challenging aspect. And the excessive media led into technology disruption, low wages, and then why these are some of these genuine problems that every one of you have. But I also think we should be, this is where experienced journalists and the other stuff, though political leaders have a lot of ability to influence, I think given the history, you all have much bigger influence in this society that you can change. For example, why is our healthcare system, our school education system, it is like exist? This is where I think a real empowerment should come from all of you. And law enforcement, why the legal system works as it is. Why can't we change it? This is where if some of you, I think, experienced people who have that passion and interest in should form some kind of groups. Writing one editorial, one column is not going to change the system. It will never. But it is a coordinated effort, a mission-driven approach is the only thing that can change and solve these problems. Sure, we can bargain some of the railway concessions so that you can get, but these are not going to change fundamentally how we want to live. So, in my point, and the other thing we need to introspect, why there are so many YouTube channels are coming into the system. Why? Because when we, traditionally these channels became political mouthpieces. People do not want to be biased, right? People want to know the truth. So they will go and find wherever they think there is a truth, wherever there is their voice. So initially people, some of you journalists might be thinking we have media monopolies. But what they did not understand is just telling what we want to tell will eventually make the system like this. It will dilute, it will expand, because whoever whoever voice is not heard, they will go and start this YouTube, all this stuff. Now you have a democratization of this entire media. This created a systemic problem. So now even the people, you get layoffs because the main media cannot get the audience. They don't know why this happened. But they always think, oh, it is the technology. But it's not the technology. It is our own behavior. What we created. If we have presented the balanced views, and obviously everybody would stick to you. And if you present data-driven, accurate information, then people will come to you. People will stick to you. But unfortunately, the media advertising today has become a government-funded one. When a government is funding, you are not the editor. Government is the editor, and whichever political party is the editor. So, if you really want to change the system, it's the same thing. Trust is the foundational thing in this society for anything to work. Now, what happened? I'm being honest here. Because the salaries have gone down to the reporters and everybody, because media houses may not be able to afford. Now they are going to the alternate route, because for any human being, the survival is the fundamental thing. They need to feed their families. They don't have a choice. Now they are going to the alternate shortcuts. Now what is happening? Trust is being decreased. People don't trust. This is the same thing that has happened for doctors. Same thing has happened to politicians. In my own politicians, like MP lads, we have 5 crores per year. And on that 5 crores, there are a lot of people who take 5%, 10%, 15% cut. A lot of the places work doesn't get done. People who genuinely want to serve, you want to go and ask Modi ji or the government, 5 crores is not enough, give us 10, 15 crores. Then they will say, you see how they are misusing. They will show the data. We have given 5 crores. How many people haven't even used half of these funds? So then you won't get what you wanted. It is the same thing with journalism or any profession. There are always 20-30% of the people who genuinely want to serve the country, who genuinely want to serve whatever. There is a reason why you became a journalist, because your DNA is aligned that from the beginning. There is a reason why I became a doctor. So those kind of people who are genuinely want to survive and serve are getting affected because of this cyclical mistrust that has happened in the society. So for any of you, many of you are highly influential. My point is, I want you to guys understand the fundamental, why these things are happening to the journalists. How can you correct? Sure, media monopolies might say, you have to do this way, that's otherwise you don't have a job. But you have to explain that. Why that is not the right thing to do? Because even though temporarily you are getting the benefit, ultimately your empire will collapse. It's just not going to work. Because people will flock to YouTube, all these social media. Eventually, I think, those are the reasons why should not do that. So a democracy without a free press is not a democracy. In my view, it is a theater. It is a theater where actors are acting rather than a real free democracy. So my suggestion is continue to rebuild credibility. As I said, fact-based reporting, data-driven journalism, differentiate clearly the news versus opinion, and enact strong newsroom ethics. And obviously breaking news. I understand the practicality. People are highly sensitive. They need news every time unless you put a breaking news. In the hospitals also, there is a thing called alarm fatigue. Because, if there is a small change in patient, we get the alarm. Then a lot of equipments were manufactured for even small variations, your blood pressure, heart rate, you get an alarm. What happened is those became so much, you get hundreds of alarms, the value of alarm is gone. It's called alarm fatigue. Same thing which happened to the breaking news fatigue also. So my point, what in the long run for any business or any person to be successful, it is that genuine, credible, hard work that takes years to build is the only thing that's going to survive. And as a journalist and others, it is your responsibility to enable those organizations to change whoever are the media owners to get into that kind of stuff. And obviously, many of you, it's hard, the technology is changing rapidly. Even though I am a tech person, there is a generation gap between my son and me. My son is in college, the way he uses technology, tools, even I am not able to catch up. So, but this kind of continuous creating this modernized press clubs that gets these latest skills, technology is a must. And the other thing is, compensation. This is another thing that we really have to discuss, journalist welfare. At journalist welfare, whether it is a fair salary, fair healthcare benefits, or transportation or pension, this is a democratic necessity. Because a fearless journalism cannot exist without financial stability. This is a fundamental aspect. But how the problem here is, we have too many journalists now. So how can we get them into a cohesive community where you can achieve that financial security is something I think the people in the leadership, this is not going, I'm not saying there are quick solutions, but this is where a leadership should have an open discussion and get into some kind of ethics. Every exam, like doctors and all, they're all exams, there are certifications, there are mandatory courses. I'm sure journalism has it, but how can you strengthen that mechanism so that only real professional journalists will come into the system? And then once you get that credibility, then you can demand for all those financial stability. And then, sometimes, some of these smaller journalists, they cannot do everything by themselves. But you see this electoral bonds investigation, 25 journalists came together and built and came up with this thing. So how can you create a shared structure? Consortium is also a good one. So, this is my view, how we evolved and what, where your situation and all that stuff. But as I come to the ending, what I want to tell you is, think about how we have survived, right? We have survived the Vernacular Press Act, we have survived emergency, you are continue to survive monopolies, manipulations, even, attacks and murders, but you are still here, still moving ahead. But I want you to remember the people that who went to prison at that time rather than betraying their readers. These are fundamental things that why we exist in this society, and we have to understand that aspect. They did not suffer so that we could surrender. They did not suffer. Otherwise, they could have suffered at that time as well. They could have surrendered at that time as well. So, in my view, every time a journalist in a small district publishes a story that a rich man or a powerful man doesn't want to told, they don't want to told. That's when democracy survives. And every time an independent newsroom refuses an advertiser's interference, this Indian Republic is strengthened. And every time a reporter stands at a police barricade and asks a question that no one else is asking, India moves forward. I mean, this is the nation building, not in spite of journalism, but because of journalism. So I wanted to know you're not just a simple content creators or government mouthpieces. You are journalists. You are the voice of voiceless, and you are the national consciousness. And at the end, I want to say, as long as there is even one journalist in every part of this country who believes that truth matters, India will not fail, and your profession will not fail, and it will continue to survive. And I wish you good luck. I hope Vijayawada and Andhra will treat you well. And obviously, whatever I could do in my power and capacity, I am happy to help with the railways and other stuff. I wish you good luck. Thank you.